Like, and if I fuck it up, no one cares.
Right. Yeah.
No one cares. No one cares about anything.
I know I should have fucked up.
To be honest. Like,
What is there to care about? What is there to care about? That's
right. The world is melting. Like, we are melting as we're talking about this podcast.
It's fucked up, right? I mean, not that just the world is melting, because we've been lamenting that for months on end now, and nothing's changing. And what's weird about it is because we're talking it into these two microphones, and nothing's changing. Well, how the fuck is that possible? We're clearly doing something.
We're doing everything we're supposed to be doing.
But on the way over here, on the way over here, I was driving, and because that's how people get places. I'm not sure if people at home, the listener at home, are familiar with.
Well, especially in a society that does not believe in public transportation.
Right. And I'm driving behind one of the new Ford Broncos, why are all of them blue-gray? That's another side point. I don't know. They're all the same color.
We call that color khaki, apparently.
Yeah. And they had a vanity plate. And the vanity plate read, "Yeehaw." And I'm not making this up. This is not a bit that it's clearly a bit, but I'm not making this up. I'm like,
this whole podcast is a bit.
I'm not some stand-up comedian who's like, I was at the dinner with my girlfriend, whatever. That's not a thing. That's always a lie. It's not a fucking thing.
Stand-up comedians don't have girlfriends.
Right. None of them have girlfriends.
Well, actually, what do you call a stand-up comedian without a girlfriend? Homeless.
So this was something that someone decided to put out into the world forever. I don't know how long you could have to keep vanity plates. I'm assuming that they're cost prohibitive enough that not everyone has one. Of course, and I'm not. Look, if you're listening at home and you have a vanity plate, that's it's not for me. I'll allow it, but it's not for me. But yeehaw, and not only that, it was YEEH4W, which means that at least there's two fucking people that have vanity plates in Texas. And seriously, the look on your face is how I feel. I want to run through the fucking glass door and never look back into traffic and make sure, because I wanted that fucking guy went, I shouldn't sexualize the vanity plate.
Or the Bronco.
Either one. A guy went to the DMV and he passed his slip of paper over to the person in charge of vanity plates. And they had to reject it and tell him, "No, sir, yeehaw is not for you today."
But
what are your alternatives? Now, and it's like if you sign up for Gmail and and your name's been taken. Well, how about yeehaw or whatever, YEH4W? How does that stand? It had to have been so disappointing. And can you imagine you put out yeehaw into the world? That was the thing that you wanted to say to everyone who was driving behind you and the oncoming into you. You wanted to say yeehaw to all of them. And now you can still do it, but it's a little bit of suppression you can't really, it's not the true message that you were trying to get across.
Do you think this particular driver was just trying to be clever?
No.
And that the H4W was exactly what they intended.
Because if you're going to do, I don't think there's a middle ground there. I don't think that you go yeehaw with all letters. Or you go yeehaw with one letter and there's no one that subversive. If they were going to go all letters, if they would have gone with,
what if they did YE3 H4W?
It would have to be Y33 H4W. That's the dichotomy, right? That's the other extreme right there. That's the fucking ironic yeehaw. That's the yeehaw in quotation marks.
Irony is dead.
But to
David
whoever,
Foster Wallace is dead. Irony is dead too.
But yeah, how you go through the entire process, right? And you're you've picked out, it's like a child's name. You picked out the perfect vanity plate for yourself. You know that, God damn it, this is going to be good. I'm going to buy this new car. I'm going to buy it. It's going to be blue-gray Bronco because that's what the same color they all are.
No one else has that car.
And I'm going to say yeehaw to the fucking world. And now you can't.
Life is a highway.
And now you can. And now, and you know what? This podcast is going to drive it all night long. But we got movies to talk about.
We got movies to talk about. So, Screamers, before we start, I do want to say something to Jason, and that is, look, just because you're paranoid does not mean they are not out to get you.
But it doesn't mean that they're not out to get me either. So,
right.
If we want to, I agree. I'm not. Yeah, I understand what you're saying. But what I'm saying is that, like, I think if we all just took a little bit more care in how we, presented ourselves, then maybe this would be a better place. Like you can do one spot, one step. The journey of 1,000 miles, right? Mm-hmm. Starts with one person not getting a vanity plate. And that's what I'm saying, is that if we can impart anything to you besides just fucking top-notch movie analysis, the other thing that we would want to be able to send out into the world is just don't fucking get a vanity plate.
Don't do it.
And don't put don't put a bumper sticker on your car. That either. It's fine. Put it on your Trapper Keeper or whatever, but don't put it on your car.
Because clearly you have honor roll kids.
Right.
But my non-kids can beat up your honor roll kids. Did you know that the essayist David Shields composed an entire essay from bumper stickers? So I call it an essay. He calls it an essay. Other people might want to argue with me, but fuck you. So he just listed.
That's the third thing of this podcast.
What's that?
That's the third message of this podcast.
This is my podcast.
Right, if you don't agree with us, fuck you.
But they're just it's a list of bumper stickers. But he organized them or arranged them, composed them in a way that kind of tells out an entire life story. And the essay, if you want to read it, is called Life Story.
Interesting.
Yeah, I did not have that pulled up on my laptop, even though I looked. It's a really cool essay. He is a subversive writer. Maybe not as cool of a person as we would like, but still. Anyway.
Right.
Yeah. So this idea of paranoia, in today's episode, we're looking at several films that take a paranoid view of the world and the systems of power found therein. So at the Filmworth...
the Filmworth Fort Club.
At the Fort Worth Film Club, we watch Sorry to Bother You. And so we've kind of put together a few other movies that go along, at least thematically, I think, in some way with that film. So we'll be looking at Sorry to Bother You, How to Get Ahead in Advertising, Border, and Ari Aster's magnum opus, Beau is Afraid. I think, too, we'll get into some discussion of the ongoing writer-actor strike and how that's harshing everyone's mellow.
It's definitely taking down my yeehaw factor.
And we do want to make sure, we do want to put out in the world that we are a pro-labor podcast.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. Not a yeehaw podcast.
Yeehaw is definitely pro-studio.
Probably.
Yeah, I'm sure that he blamed the person taking his initial yeehaw vanity plate on an immigrant who came over and took his vanity plate, because that's what they're doing. They take our jobs and they take our vanity plates,
who are also socialists.
Fuck everything.
Yeah. So and the mayor of New York believes that migrants will destroy the city.
Right.
I don't know if you read that.
I did. I did read that. That's an interesting take on a city literally built by immigrants,
or a country built by immigrants.
Yeah, seriously,
can we just? I know it's ridiculous. But speaking of, did you see people saying things? Have you seen? And this is our segue into Sorry to Bother You. But have you seen the sort of feud happening between Boots Riley and David Fincher?
What I don't understand.
Not feud.
Right. Where Boots is basically telling him to fuck. And Boots, in my mind, the director and writer-director of Sorry to Bother You is a avowed communist. He's a part of the Street Sweeper Social Club, the Coup. So this is not a guy who's not wearing his heart on his sleeve, and he's not waffling on his views.
Right.
I don't fucking understand these, and I guess it only comes from, and it's seemingly only coming from like established white hacks that are apologetic for the studios. Mm-hmm. And it's fucking crazy to me that an industry that there are certain studios that have shown that they can give in. Not give in is the wrong fucking. They can come to the table and pay their artists and collaborate with their artists.
And these are smaller studios that are showing this too.
And you have someone like Fincher or Bill Maher is like the same. I mean, Bill Maher is a whole other fucking ball of wax too.
Right,
like that guy's a piece of shit and has been for decades. Even when he was pretending to be a liberal.
Right. When he was pretending not to be, he still was. Right.
I don't understand Fincher's take. I don't understand any of these takes of like, well, you know, they have some good points, that they're good people on, but no, they're not.
No,
there's
no.
not. There's billionaires. There's billionaires who are trying to milk these fucking, and like everything that you see, like, and this is honesty. I mean, every press release you see that's coming from a studio right now is all meant to take away from it's supposed to make you divert your attention from what's going on. And they're not paying the people that you love, the people that are the talent behind the things that you love. And it's just fucking bullshit. I don't understand why Fincher would come to the table with that take. I don't even understand, like, even if he thought it internally, like, well, I've got mine. It's, you know, this Ayn Rand bullshit. If I got mine, I don't give a fuck about anybody else. And like, no one really, yeah, they're going to pay you, Fincher, because you've established yourself. And again, what's great about most of these big named actors and actresses who have already been established, and writers as well, is that they're fighting for the people who are struggling to make health insurance,
right,
and are living, you know, 10 to an apartment so they can live out their fucking dream, which is what I would think that we support in America, right? Is to follow your heart and to be a success and to do the things that you love. And that's why you come here. And again, I know, I mean, this is not a American Tale Fievel story that I'm trying to impart on here. I'm just saying that I don't understand the take. I really don't. Yeah. And I don't know why they feel the need to undercut, because I mean, it continues and it will continue, I'm guessing, for months on end from here on out, and that, you know, they're not going to come back to the table. And it's what I hope happens is that we see more studios, or like A24, or these, I mean, they become wildly successful, and Neon and all these smaller distribution houses that actually, and so, yeah, if I would say one thing, that if, I mean, the things that have been made and are going out into the theaters now, you know, support those. It's fine. They've already been in the bank, but like, as you move forward, notice who was there at the beginning. I mean, not at the very beginning, but I mean, who's, you know, come and been willing to work with, and not even like questioned it, really, seemingly anyway.
Right. Right, because it seems like Neon, A24, these studios who are getting these kind of interim agreements or interim waivers, right, haven't put up and I don't want to say put up a fight, but they've been just like, sure, okay, yeah, we agree to that. Great, let's do it. Let's go, right?
Right.
Okay, fine. Right. So yeah, it begs the question, why these bigger studios who are making more money aren't willing to do the same? Because they're going to make more money. And I mean, how much is this costing them? But I mean, more importantly, how much is it sort of costing and destroying some of these people that are not making a ton of money, right? I mean, but it's nothing but greed. It's nothing but spite.
Yeah, I mean, it's you know, it's obviously just all indicative of the quickly capsizing American capitalist structure that cannot be sustained, because what you're doing is, again, you're stomping on workers to be beholden to shareholders. So you're looking at cutting every single cost that you can. You're looking at putting in AI for scripts and AI for actors and AI for artists, because you don't want to pay actual people to do this. And again, you know, AI is not generating anything new. They're just standing on the backs of the people that you're basically squashing.
I mean,
and all
it's literally combing the internet for this stuff. And like,
right.
You have to feed these things scripts to build a model. So you're just using people's other work.
So it's not intelligent. It's machine learning at best. And so it's just quick and dirty, and
it's profits over people.
Right. And for what fucking end? Again, like, you know, as you, if you find yourself siding with the side of a fucking billionaire, you're wrong. 100%, absolutely, no question, unequivocally, you're wrong. That guy does not deserve the money that he has. And so stop. Just stop.
Right. And that's the real American dream, is that we think that people come by a lot of this honestly, and they don't.
No.
Right? And again, it's on the backs of other people. And so much of it is generational wealth, passed down.
And it's just exploitation after exploitation. And especially in Hollywood, and especially when you've dealt with this, you know, fancy math and hidden tactics of determining what revenue is, and what, you know, how much things make and how much they don't and how much they lose. You know, any sort of endeavor is a gamble, right? And so, yes, you're going to lose money, but Disney does not buy Star Wars. Disney does not buy Marvel. Disney does not buy Pixar without making money. And these are and for these studios, The ones that seemingly have slam dunks. It's the ones that even when they say that they're losing millions of dollars are not. They're not. Right. When we say Little Mermaid's a box office flop, what we mean is it didn't make $1 billion at the box office.
Right.
The expectations were $1 billion in the global box office. Okay, so it didn't make that. It fucking makes money. Yeah. It makes money. I mean, if you just do the back of the napkin math on how many Disney Plus subscribers there are,
right?
How many people they own ESPN? They own.
Well, they even tell us how many subscribers there are,
right? I mean, and this is the real thing about it, right? Is they want to hide all of this shit, and they've been able to develop avenues in which they could hide it, and now those avenues are being questioned.
And this is something else that wealth affords you, right? Accountants to figure out like loopholes.
And this is like these guys like Fincher and Marr, and there's others that have come out during this strike and kind of shown their ass, is that they're the fools.
Mm-hmm.
They're the ones still being taken advantage of, and they're the puppets of these fucking assholes who want to keep down people who were just like them, 2 decades earlier, right? This is the same studio system that fucked Fincher on Aliens 3.
Right.
He wants to come back and say, well, it's not so bad, and there's, they've got a couple of points on that.
And I can see where they're coming from.
Go fuck yourself.
It makes me sad.
You fucking hack. Like, I mean, and yeah. I mean, like, seriously, how many Netflix hand jobs are you giving out at this point? I mean, like, what is your fucking point, dude?
Right.
And again, and these are millionaires, right? I mean, this is so. It's so disingenuous for him to even open his. Just get your fucking ass out on the picket line. Even if you don't want to do that, shut the fuck up.
Right? Yeah, just
that's all you gotta do.
Yeah.
You don't want to fight. Shut the fuck up.
Yeah. You don't have to be heard or seen right now. That's a way to sort of show solidarity, isn't it?
Right. And that leads right into sorry to bother you.
Yeah. I'm just out here surviving. And what I'm doing right now won't even matter.
Oh, baby, it will always matter. Thought you said you fixed that.
Get a room! I got a room, mother.
Hey, Cash, how much longer I gotta wait for my money?
God made this land for all of us. Greedy people like you want to hog it to yourself and your family.
Me and my family?
Yeah.
Cassius, I'm your uncle.
I just really need a job.
40 on 2.
This is telemarketing. Stick to the script.
Hey, hello. Mr. Davidson, Cassius Green here. Sorry to bother.
Let me give you a tip. You want to make some money here? Use your white voice.
My white voice?
I'm never talking about Will Smith's wife, like this young blood.
Hey, Mr. Kramer. This is Langston from Regal View.
As always, we'll be getting that out to you right away.
You're doing so good with the voice thing.
Holla, 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 holla.
You're going upstairs, power caller. They even have their own elevator.
Welcome, power caller. I hope you did not masturbate today. We need you sharp and ready to go.
I got promoted. I'm a power caller.
What do they sell?
They're not selling it, but we selling.
No, there's no amount of money that make me do that.
Here's the starting salary.
Well, man, I'm gonna have to get me some new suits.
Whatever I wear, no, I'm here to be clean.
It is morally emaciated. I can't ride with you.
I'm doing something I'm really good at.
Cash, I'm gonna make you a proposal. I can see that you want to say no, but I wouldn't do that before you see what I'm offering. Cash, you are awesome.
Some for the homies and some for me.
See the segue there? All right, so this film follows a young black telemarketer who adopts a white accent to succeed at his job. Swept into a corporate conspiracy, he must choose between profit and joining his activist friends to organize labor. This stars Lakeith Stanfield, Tessa Thompson, Steve Yeun, and Armie Hammer, who really choose the scenery, I think. In this.
Yeah. He's not to that, like, because his scandal was so like bizarre and like quick. It was just such a weird immediate takedown.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm not like, it's well deserved.
I say, are you defending?
I'm not. I'm just kind of befuddled by it. And so like watching him in this movie is not the same thing as like watching Spacey in American Beauty or something else, or watching any of these other, Me Too, these guys who were, horrible men who, got their just desserts essentially, or didn't in some cases. Danny Masterson just got 30 years to life for raping 2 women. So
fuck that dude.
Seriously. So I hope that brings some peace to the women that he harmed. But good riddance. Not that he was blowing. I mean, like, who gives a shit? It's one of those things. Like, too. It's like, so we're not going to see him on some podunk Netflix show that, like, it's like Yellowstone for stupider people. I don't even know. Like, I mean, like, it's.
I like how you said stupider. And this, folks, shows our take on Yellowstone.
Honestly, I've never watched it. I like Taylor Sheridan, but I've never watched it.
Neither have I. I do like Taylor Sheridan too. I mean, Wind River and Hell or High Water. And,
good stuff.
Anyway,
good stuff.
Okay.
So I'm being facetious just because it's popular, and the people who talk about it sometimes are annoying. So it's
stupid.
But so it's weird. Like it's weird watching him knowing, but also this role is very kind of fitting into that persona of him being this ultra rich, ultra handsome white guy who can kind of get away with anything. And I was thinking about this movie. I mean, just kind of as there's a lot. I mean, obviously, there's a lot going on in this, and there's so much that I think Boots Riley is trying to come to grips with and come to terms with in their own success and their own career path, and this idea of people of color having to assimilate, and that assimilation starting to take over their real lives outside of their work. And then that, I think that speaks, there's just so much here this is like ridiculously well done first film. And there's so much being said, but like that whole portion of it, of that assimilation, and that assimilation then bleeding over into real life, and then that assimilation then making you think you're one of the elites, and betraying, the people that were your friends, and your family, and the people that supported you, excuse me, before you got to be the puppet that you were, right? And this idea of that we're going to give you breadcrumbs so that you'll still serve this greater good. But then, I don't know, this movie is amazing.
It's so good. But this goes back to what you were saying about sort of getting to places on the backs of others. I mean, I really think that, to go along with what you were saying, that this film in so many ways shows our current economic system at work, where I'm going to get mine and like, sorry, right? I'm moving on. But it also, this system really sort of endorses that idea of be better than everyone else. I mean, everything we do here, everything we do at work, at play, whatever, is a competition. You have to be better than someone else. Right. And that's what's going on in this movie too. I mean, he wants to sort of climb the ladder of telemarketing, which again, just the premise is so absurd. Right. I mean, they're in this like, boiler room, just like making calls. And it's like, I'm going to keep going and get to the top. But again, it's this film that shows us how this system works to separate us. Right, to separate us from this community that we once had.
And I think he does a really good job too, because when he one of the plot is so dense, and watching this over and over again, like it really kind of, all the layers start to kind of make themselves clear. But having Lakeith start out, or having Cash start out,
say his full name.
Cassius Green, baby.
Yeah, what color is Cash?
Cassius Green. Is having him start out selling encyclopedias, right? Something that no one really needs, but it's a kind of it's a simplistic, non-harmful. Yeah, you're pushing something. It's clear you're pushing something that no one needs, right? And you're trying to sell it to them and whatever. But it's also something that you don't. It's not
It's not nefarious.
It's right. It's not snake oil, right? I mean, if you sell someone, they could use it, right? They could use a set of encyclopedias. I mean, if they really, really wanted to. But it's not like you're not trying to sell them a cancer treatment or you're not trying to sell them beauty. So it allows the audience to kind of like, well, okay, this is not so bad, right? I mean, yeah, he's doing high pressure tactics, but he's not really stealing a whole lot of money from these people. He may be selling them something that's, at a high profit, but I mean, ultimately they can use it. He's not trying to, he's not Wolf of Wall Streeting them to a certain extent.
It's not a pyramid scheme.
Right. And then, so you're allowing yourself to kind of say, okay, well, this is a job. And right. I mean, people have to, if encyclopedias exist, someone's got to sell them. So if it's not him, then who, right? And he's got bills to pay and he's got
to eat.
Right. He's got to take care of his girlfriend. He's got to take care of his uncle. And so, yeah, it's not so bad. But then when he gets up and they're working for Meglacorp, I mean, that's not the name of the corporation, but they're working for this giant corporation that is essentially, creating this system of indentured servitude, which, again, is an extreme, but not too fucking far off from what's actually happening here.
Right.
And this idea, his uncle has diabetes and diabetes, and I don't know why I can't get past the Wilford Brimley pronunciation of it. He's got diabetes, and he's out of work and he's thinking about going to work for this place, and he says 3 hots in a cot, and this is a prison term, right? I mean, doesn't go unnoticed of like, and the fact that people do commit crimes specifically so they can be treated human in a certain sense. And that what all of that says about our fucking society, and it's and then so once he finally does get up to the Super Sellers Club, and he's selling people, is basically selling slave labor to multinational corporations. It's this insidiousness that bleeds into our system and bleeds into ourselves, of like, well, we do one thing that's questionable, and we start building and building, and it's, and then once we've made that decision and crossed that boundary, the next questionable thing, even though if it's much more horrific, we're already at this level. So going up one more level, and I can provide a downtown apartment and all the entrapments that come with that. One of the things I really liked about this movie too is how it shows how really, I mean, it can be debatable about happiness and levels of happiness, but how much more satisfied he seemed with his life when he was in a shitbox car and they were pulling they were on wiper duty, pulling the wipers with strings. Right.
But yeah, and at that time the car was packed with friends.
Right. Yeah.
And they go to a dive bar. And the dive bar has a VIP room, which but this goes back to my sort of point about separation and how it's not just at work. Right? You go to any bar and there's a select section for other people. Right now at this dive bar, it's been the same password for how many years, and anybody can go in. But that's not the idea. I mean, that's not the point, right?
Right.
Keith's character, only notices the VIP room after how many times he's been in this bar, right? But I mean, I like that idea that like everywhere we go has this same way of categorizing us, of separating us from the people we were there with. It's like, have I told you how much I dislike music festivals?
You have, yes.
Okay. Have I told you, listener?
And Brock just got back from Burning Man, by the way.
I did. I'm still covered in mud. It was great. No, but the whole idea of music festivals, right, is this like community experience, and all of us out there in this like field or wherever it is, watching the same sort of thing or going to a different stage together. Unless you're a VIP and you have like your own air conditioning and you have your own private bathrooms. And I'm like, it's a fucking music festival, but we always have to sell VIP tickets, right? One, so that the organizers can make more money, but then so that, Becky can feel like she's really important. I'm sorry, Becky's out there.
It's a name.
It's a name.
They're used to it.
Yeah. But again, like, okay, so you can go over here because you're important, even though all you did was pay extra money, right? Or your parents did.
Yeah, it's just like, it's just like anything, right? I mean, it recently where there was a bunch of backlash of Taylor Swift fans getting upset that she was releasing the same album with a different cover, like in a 48-hour window.
Yeah. But again, I mean, like we see this all the time. Like how many records are now pressed in different colors? Just so someone will buy all three of them. I mean, that's so fucking, you know what? Just buy the black fucking vinyl. Sorry. Sorry.
No,
okay?
I mean, it's
this whole thing of like, oh, I have to get the like red swirly. It's like, no, you don't. No, you don't. I mean, this is what they're doing. They're just like going to put out different versions of the same fucking thing. No one needs a new repress of Led Zeppelin 4. I'm telling you.
But
no one needs it. Period.
This one came with a secret song, you know, an unreleased track.
Oh, I bet it's about Lord of the fucking Rings. Have I told
it's not even a Led Zeppelin track.
Have I told you how much I dislike Led Zeppelin too? Speaking of music, did you catch Detroit? So Detroit is Cash's girlfriend, played by Tessa Thompson. She's an artist, and she's also, quite frankly, a performance artist when she's twirling signs. But did you catch her earrings at one point? I mean, her earrings always had like different messages, right? But at one point she had, you know, on one ear it said, you know, bury the rag and then deep in your face, right? So it took me a couple times to catch that, but it's from Bob Dylan's The Lonesome Death of Hattie Carroll, which I just think is so smart and subversive for him to just like, I got to stop saying subversives. Everything is subversive.
Right.
Especially in the world of film. But it's so smart and just so subtle, right? That he does that comes from her, and how that plays in the rest of the film. I thought that was really great.
Yeah, I was thinking a lot about like, because obviously 2/3 of the way through this takes a huge tonal shift, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and I was thinking about like, why did he really do that? Yeah, and you hear that, if you hear the screaming in the background, folks, that's people, it's our fans
it's
outside.
Our fan
We're keeping
club.
them at a bad day. So.
It's like, what was it, like Total Request Live?
Yeah.
We talked about MTV last time too, so we might as well. Where everyone's like outside the windows and just like, or like in the studio.
Right.
I am Carson Daly.
And I'm the other. There is no other Carson. Was there? Did he do the entire thing? I only remember about Carson Daly.
You're the older Carson Daly.
Yeah, I'm the one who dated Jennifer Love Hewitt, and you're the one. You're the one when he dated. What's the chick's name from Big Lebowski?
Tara Reid.
Yeah,
that makes sense. Actually. Yeah. Okay. That's fair.
But I think if he doesn't have that huge tonal shift, there's no anger in this movie.
Right.
Right. This movie needs a portion, and of course, what we're talking about is once Cash goes to the party at the owner, you know, at the CEO's house, and he finds out that the company is literally turning people into horses so they can get more labor out of them, and so he makes Cash do this line of coke, which ends up turning out to be a accelerator of some sort,
to turn him into a horse.
But if it doesn't have this turn, then this movie's just Office Space, right? It's just another, okay, well, I quit my job and I've gone back to the things that make me happy. And I'm not going to denigrate Office Space at all. But Boots Riley and Mike Judge are telling two completely different stories in different ways anyway. And so Boots needs this. It needs this shock to the system, and so this movie has some sort of like ground. I don't know, grounding's the wrong term, but like this sense of this shift of tone, so you can feel outrage and feel this like craziness of it all. Because otherwise, we just, I know I got my red stapler and I go to the beach, and that's the end of the movie, right? It's all fine, and the corporation gets to do what the corporation does. It takes a minor hit. I mean, in this movie, once we find out that they're making horse people. And the world celebrates them. Their stock goes up, right? And it's
how inventive. But again, like this comes back, I think, to this idea of AI and automation, right? Where a company develops a new way to do something cheaper, right, or more automatic, and we celebrate that, and we're like, yes, the stock goes up. We don't think about the people who were doing that job before. And I want to make something clear. I think technology and automation can be a good thing. But not when you just discard the people that you've been working half to death, right, for 20 years.
Right. And
so what do we tell those people? Well, get a different job.
Learn something, right?
Yeah. Go back to school. Learn a trade. Well, I did. And this is what I'm doing. And now you're telling me that I'm no longer needed. But this, again, and I think this is Boots' view too, but this is what capitalism does. right? You look for cheaper ways to do something, and then you just discard those people that don't fit that mold anymore.
It's unnecessary automation.
Right. Right.
You didn't automate anything. Well, you just took a human factor out of it.
Yeah.
And like, let's take janitorial services, for example. These machines aren't cleaning anything better. Look, there's less human emotion, but there's outside of that, you're not doing anything. You're not making the world a safer place. You're not eliminating errors. You're not.
Well, and we're not giving those people a chance to do anything else. Because, I mean, this is the thing. So the guy who's a janitor and we develop a robot to be a robot janitor. Well, now maybe the robot janitor is a painter on the side. I'm trying to remember the guy's name who did the Vivian Girls and was like a custodial worker. But then he had all these like paintings and creepy. Anyway,
Good Will Hunting is what you're talking about, though.
Yes. Good Will Hunting, right? But like, we don't give these people then like, okay, so now we've solved like this human labor part. Now we can sort of invest in leisure, but that's not what we do.
Right. We just hoard the money.
Right.
And we distribute it to people who don't need it.
Capitalism was supposed to be this thing that made everything better and that led to innovation, and so that we could have more leisure time, but apparently only if you're rich. Eat the fucking rich. All right. Are you done with this one?
Yeah. I
could talk about this for.
Yeah. No. I think it's I think there were some things that were brought up in the discussion at the film, like why didn't Danny Glover's character be more of a protectorate for for Cash's character. I'm always a little guarded in those conversations because I don't ever want to necessarily to get into an argument per se.
Sure.
But I didn't really see that as being that was Dan. I think Danny Glover, if you look at his character, and it's not his story, but if you look at his character, I'm sure he's seen that happen. I'm sure he saw that with Mr. Blank coming up. And so I'm sure he's seen it over and over again. And it's one of those things where, look, you're trying to help somebody out and you mentor to a certain degree, and you can't always know if they're going to go to the dark side or to the light side.
Also, Cash seems, even though he has friends and he's part of a group, he does seem a bit of a loner, or at least he seems a little more aloof and alone than everyone else in that group. So I don't think he would have listened necessarily anyway. I think he was I think he took the advice and then he did his own thing with the advice. Right. It's kind of how I looked at it. I think this film does a really good job of showing art as a commodity as well. How this bit of protest art ends up on the wall of the billionaire's house, right?
Right. Yeah.
And I think that's really great. We see her, we see Detroit defacing a billboard, sort of, making a bit of protest, art on the billboard. And then, we cut to the rich party and it's up there on the wall.
Right.
But again, this is the idea. You look at NWA's Fuck the Police, for example, and now you hear that beat in commercials and you're like, Right. You think of the song, but then you're thinking of the car that it's selling too. And so, but again, this is how this system has co-opted and taken these things.
Well, that's an interesting take though, too, right? How long can you, for someone like Boots, it's a different, I think, and this is again, the question that maybe he's asking, or one of the questions he's asking is how long can you rage against the machine? You clearly have to have the machine to fuel the rage in the first place. You also have to have the machine to get out your message, and to a certain extent, and you take Fuck the Police and NWA, and 2 decades later, and we've got Are You There? Are We There Yet? Or fucking Snoop. And I know Snoop wasn't part of NWA, but still Aftermath. Snoop making fucking in lines with Big Time Rush, the Nickelodeon boy band type shit. Right. So where do you stop this sellout line? What does Ice Cube owe back to the community that he essentially built?
Right.
To come back, and does he have to continue? And again, I don't know the answer to this question, but
these are interesting questions to bring up.
How long does he have to continue to say "fuck the police"? One would think as long as the police are still fucking shit up, and they need to say, we need to say "fuck you,"
the police,
right? Which clearly we still do. But I think it's weird. At a certain point, where do you pass the baton? Do you pass the baton to someone else? And are you betraying your this is not like Aquafina or Post Malone, like utilizing a niche market to promote themselves and then go beyond it. That they never owed. They owed things to it, but they never really were a part of the community, right?
Right.
But I mean, someone like Ice, does he need some, or like take Ice-T, for example, who's kind of, built that whole, I mean, he was, the pioneer of gangster rap, and then also provided a normalized version of detective work where people, you lie to people and the things that he would have been subject to.
Right.
And so what does he owe? Right. I mean, and again, I don't want to question, I'm not going to question these artists to their faces and their decisions.
Well, because they would kick your ass.
Right. Well, I don't know at this point, but like, I mean, Ice is kind of pudgy, and Cube, I could take Cube. I could take Cube. T, I don't know. T might.
What if they're listening?
Look,
anyway.
O'Shea, I don't want to fight. I don't want to fight anybody, and I have ridiculous respect for his career and everything. I don't want to fight him.
No, I'm kidding.
But yeah, you're probably right. I'm pretty sure that they've been in more fights recently with me. That's fine. Yeah. I don't want. I always thought I could take Suge. I could have taken Suge. This is not going to happen now.
Yeah, that's a big dude. But to your point, I mean, I do think a good example is Rage Against the Machine.
Right.
I mean. So recently, Tom Morello just played with workers at a strip club as they were unionizing. But I think that is going back very much to the exact people that they were speaking to or for. Right? I mean, I think that climbing into the system and then saying, okay, now we're here, but we're still going to do what we want. What are you going to do about it?
Right.
And I mean, those guys, they said, well, okay, like, fine. But it's the same thing with Boots, right? He's being financed now by Amazon.
Right, sure.
I mean, but he's still raging against this kind of capitalist system. And he's not backing down, at least, socially, on social media or in public, on his ideas of socialism, communism. And I don't know what that says, other than he is questioning the system from within inside the system.
Yeah, and I don't know where you make the separation. If you asked Ice Cube, how he felt about making Are We There Yet? And as opposed to being a guy who, was America's Most Wanted, kind of, that ideal, I don't know where he draws the line, right? And of course, you're a 16-year-old kid who's trying to make it, and you're a 30 to 40-year-old father, that's trying to provide. That's a different story too.
So, I mean, become different.
Right. I don't know. It's interesting. But where do you see it as a betrayal, and where does it? Where do you let it go? Because I mean, like, they become affable at a certain point. So Snoop's now this Martha Stewart loving dope guy, but we all forget that he was on trial for fucking murder, and then put that as a kind of a money making thing. Like, there was a
use
VHS
that to
tape
sell records.
Murder was the case, baby.
Yeah.
I mean, like, so like it's I don't know. And at a certain point, maybe we all just get swept up into
all of our favorite rappers are Crips.
I guess so.
Snoop was a Crip. I think Ice Cube was as well, wasn't he?
Was Ice ever in the gang?
Ice-T?
No, I was talking about Cube. I thought Cube was kind of like he got bused to a nerdy high school.
I don't know. I mean, he's been seen Crip walking on stage before, so I don't know if there's an affiliation. Look, here's here's how I came up. You don't flash the signs, you don't do the dance if you're not part of it.
Sure, but right? I don't think Serena and Venus Williams were Crips either. And
did they Crip walk?
Yeah, they Crip walked after like some Wimbledon game. I mean, maybe it was a doubles. Like, so
I don't know, man.
I think there's people who have license. I think there's people who are familiar. Like, if you're talking about
Crip walked to the Super Bowl, which was cool.
6ix9ine's not a Crip, but he was like, he's
okay, but I don't think he's very well thought of amongst the Crips now.
Not anymore.
Right?
No, of course not.
Crip turned snitch.
It happens, man. It happens.
I love. Anyway, I love our talk.
I grew up. I grew up thinking that the Bloods and the Crips were basically going to take over America at some point,
because that was the message, wasn't it?
This is like Reagan era, like high fright was that. The Bloods and the Crips were basically infiltrating the preschools, and we were all going to be Bloods or Crips one day, or fucking be gunned down by them.
I mean, I knew cats in gangs and would end up at house parties that one group would bum rush another, and you're just like going, "Oh, that was fun." We're all running now from. Yeah, I mean, there's other stories, but they're not, podcast approved, I guess, right?
That'll be on our Patreon at work.
Yeah, speaking of, right? Speaking of capitalism, hey guys. No, I'm kidding. Let's move on to a strange cousin of Sorry to Bother You, and let's talk about Growing Extra Heads.
A movie that no one else has seen, but
it's so good though.
It really is.
This is how to get ahead in advertising.
How are you getting on with the pimple cream?
Just a fine tune. I'll be through over the weekend.
How to get ahead in advertising.
My name's Barbara Simmons, and I'm a biochemist. But at night, I'm a woman.
Rule number 1. Be creative in every situation.
I recommend a new product because I make it. What do you want?
Never lose your perspective.
Compared to this, dandruff was a birthday present. So was breath.
You're raising your voice, darling.
Don't bring home your work.
You're under tremendous stress.
I know exactly what I'm doing now. Get his Valium.
Follow these simple rules.
You're so run down, you've got to boil yourself.
And you will get ahead.
Hiya, handsome.
Dennis thinks he's got a talking boil.
What? I'm looking in the bathroom mirror, and it's booked in.
Just look at it in the mirror. Tell me what you see.
It's got a moustache.
Who are you? What do you want? I am your better half.
He was overworked and nearly had a breakdown, but he's much better now.
Oh, you're going to have a monster on top of you.
Stay away from me!
Boston, I think your husband's completely bananas.
I personally would be up all night with a revolver.
I want to sell them the idea that boils are beautiful.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
To boils, acne, and blackheads.
How to get ahead in advertising.
The career where 2 heads
are better than one. Shut up.
Dennis Bagley has a crisis of conscience about the ethics of advertising, which leads to mania. He then develops a boil on his right shoulder that comes to life with a face and voice. The boil takes a cynical and unscrupulous view of the advertising profession in contrast to Bagley's newfound ethical concerns. Eventually, Bagley decides to have the boil removed in hospital, but moments before he is taken into the operating room, the boil quickly grows into a replica of Bagley's head, only with a mustache, and covers Bagley's original head, asking doctors to lance it, which is done since nobody has noticed the switch from left to right nor the new mustache. I want to talk a little bit about Handmade films.
Sure.
You know the story behind Handmade films?
I don't.
Okay, so this movie was made by Handmade Films. Handmade came about because George Harrison, the Beatle, wanted to see Life of Brian. So he was friends with the Pythons. EMI had just pulled support from Life of Brian. And so Harrison and his business partner advisor stepped in and provided finance for it, right? And then after that, Handmade also did Time Bandits, Mona Lisa, The Long Good Friday, which I fucking love that movie.
It's
so
brilliant.
much, right? Both starring Bob Hoskins, Mona Lisa and Long Good Friday. And also With Nail and I, which stars the star of this film, Richard E. Grant. It didn't end very well, Handmade, right? Harrison's business partner turned out to be a schemer and was sort of promising things based on, using Harrison's money as backing, but Harrison didn't know.
Right.
And so it all kind of went belly up. And then they sold it to Paragon Entertainment. And then the rest of it is just like a tangled mess of takeover and insolvency.
Right. But a good run, though.
Yeah, well, they still have a website where you can look at the history and sort of see where things have shifted. But yeah, Life of Brian, Time Bandits, yeah, Mona Lisa, Long Good Friday. I mean, these are good. This film and With Nail and I. But Harrison said, I would have been content just to do Life of Brian and Time Bandits. Much happier just doing comedies. But it's an interesting story. But this movie is also interesting in the context, I think, of Thatcherism and like deregulation as well. And, you know, a lot of the deregulation of the film industry in Britain too. And you would see this opening up, you know, new opportunities for creation of wealth, but also like everything relied on profits as metrics, right? Rather than like what constitutes a success. I mean, I think profits is a shitty way to look at it if something is like good or not.
Right. Well, and this movie clearly points that out.
Right.
It has no intent of having, you know, and in the advertising agency, has no intent of giving a shit about whether the product. In fact, he specifically says that no one wants to create a pimple cream that cures pimples. Right. He just wants to give the impression that it cures pimples, right? If it cured pimples, then they couldn't sell any more fucking cream.
Pimple cream.
Grant is so good in this. I think, I do think that this is an interesting like swipe at capitalism and the moment that the capitalism really needed a swipe, but people weren't really probably receptive to that swipe. And again, that's why you get something like Crazy People, which is we're going to advertise things with truth. And I keep talking about these other films like I don't like them. I actually like Crazy People. I think it's a silly, funny movie. It's not great by any means, but I'm also kind of a big Dudley Moore fan. I mean, I that drunk persona to me, I don't know. I grew up with Arthur. I think it's funny. And I like all the takes of it that kind of make fun of it. There's did you watch The Critic when it was on?
Oh, sure.
Fox?
Yeah.
They had a really funny Dudley Moore character that was like always like saying other like funnier Dudley or Moore lines, like or Arthur lines, I guess I should say. But in Dudley, and actually I don't know why I should talk like Dudley Moore is a brilliant comedian.
Oh
like,
yeah,
him Cook and Moore stuff is great. So so you know, whatever. But yeah, it's interesting that this movie gets made at this time. Like I said, it's kind of a dig at Thatcherism and Reaganism, and then. It kind of, I don't know. I don't know many people who I don't see anybody ever really talking about this movie.
I know, I don't either.
And as much as I guess it's not that Withnail and I is in the public consciousness all that often, but I mean it is kind of a more heralded film.
Yeah.
So it's interesting that this one is, and I think it is because it's challenging and it's kind of garish and it's angry and so it asks a lot more of someone watching it. Like it's not like a real pleasant viewing experience really, but it's so good and Grant is so good in it that it's like watching the opening of Meaning of Life and but like making that portion of it funnier and like longer, I guess.
Well, and it never slows down. It never feels like it slows down or stops. It just goes.
Yeah.
I mean, even from the opening scene where they're like, you know, in the boardroom and he's like questioning, you know, the ads that they put together. From that moment on, it's like he never stops moving. He's like in perpetual motion throughout this film.
Right.
And so yeah, it's tough to watch, but it also like you can't stop watching it.
Yeah.
It's a weird experience, but
and not only like a dig at like you know, capitalism and this consumerism that is being forced upon it and like the emptiness that's behind all of that, but also watching this man's descent and kind of like his moral breakdown and the split of you know, literal split of his personality as he comes to grips with what he's been doing, and then like so angrily, like once he makes that break, right, and he's naked in his kitchen, like with an apron on, just like tearing the whole, like he's ripping up everything that's empty
every
and
appliance,
soulless and like that's basically been sold to him, right, and he's tearing it apart. And, you know, at that same moment, he still can't, it's very depressing story. Like he can't escape. And ultimately what wins out is the fucking consumerism and is the emptiness and the cash is green in this story continues on and doesn't ever question his position. Of course, he doesn't get turned into a horse, but I mean, it's the same thing. His body changes.
Well,
like he literally has to transmorph into the same version of himself that he was trying to squash. And that portion of it popped out of his skin.
like it oozed out of him literally, right?
And it's so sad and like depressing, you know, once the real Richard Grant, or however you want to characterize it, right? The man who was trying to break free of these chains is now the Boyle himself and is getting squashed down, and he has to watch his wife and like all these other people in his life not realize
that it's
not him, you know, and they question it somewhat, but not really.
Yeah.
And really, the only reason they ever question it is because he seems to be more competent now, and right? I mean, like he's bought into, and that's a fucked up kind of message, right? I mean, this idea of like, well, if you're gonna be evil, if you're gonna be a piece of shit, you might as well be a piece of shit, and like don't question it, just lean into it because you'll be a lot happier. And I think that plays out every fucking day.
Yep. Well, and we talked about this same thing in Sorry to Bother You.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I was selling this and I can figure out how to justify selling this. Right. And it's the same thing. Well, you know, I've done this much. I can justify doing these or selling these evil things so that I can be happier, albeit wifeless at the end of this.
Right.
But you're right. I mean, we tell ourselves these lies all the time in order to, get ahead, get a promotion, get a job, buy something new. I don't know. I mean, anything, everything. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, think about it. If you think about it, and this is not something that we all don't go through, right? And of course, you know, as we've said before, I'm an only child, so I've realized that the things that happened to me of the 192,000 years that humans have been on this planet, and of the 117 billion people that have ever existed, the things that happened to me, because I'm an only child, have only ever happened to me. So it's fine. I get that. But this idea that, and I completely, now I fucking lost my thread. What the fuck were we talking about? That's
telling lies to ourselves. Justifying things.
This idea of like when you, like your cash, you like when you've got a fucking car where you've got to pull the wiper. You look back on your life and when you started out and how the fuck did I live off of X amount of money now that I'm living, and I'm barely making money. Like I'm still living paycheck to paycheck on this amount of money. Like it's a fucked up existence, and that we all kind of buy into, and it's I mean,
Well, it is, and I think this is the stuff that like tricks us too, because we can look at the world and just go, God, this place is awful and everything's melting. So fuck it. I'm going to buy the new TV. I'm going to buy the new.
Right. So fuck it. I'm going to go into the DMV and get myself a goddamn vanity plate.
Yeehaw vanity plate. But this is, I don't know. It's such a sort of fine line because, I think we do deserve nice things. I mean, that's a weird way to put it, right? But what are the things that are going to make our lives worth living? I don't think that they're blenders, right, is what I mean.
Right.
What are they, though? I don't know. I mean, I don't know, and I don't think you can answer that for me, right?
Doing math. I got a whiteboard back here.
Here, Brock, this is the thing. And he just holds up a book. It's weird. But even those cost like, but this is the thing where I'm like, so often I'm like, look, all I do is spend money on like books and records and movie, and they're like products of the mind, right? They're like intellectual pursuits in a way. And then I'm like, you're still buying shit. Like you're still buying products that somebody is out there telling you that you need. Right. You need to read this new book from this small independent press. You need to keep up with what's going on in this world. Right. It's the same thing. And I just can trick myself, a lot of myself, saying, no, look, I deserve this. Right? It was a tough week. Right? So I deserve this new book. Do I have the $30? Sure. Yeah. Okay.
Why not?
Right? Like, why not? Right? I mean, it's, but I don't like it's
money's a construct. It's not really real.
No shit. Right? This is true. So much of the money we use as money is just computer code.
You think they're ever going to let you stop? They think they're ever going to let you stop?
No, but I think, no, of course I don't.
Push the ball up the goddamned hill.
Look, you have to imagine Sisyphus happy.
Right.
And we are also a pro-Camus podcast. Right. Sisyphus found his thing and it was pushing that fucking boulder.
He was the best goddamn boulder pusher that ever lived.
Yes, he was.
Anything else on how to get ahead in advertising?
No, it took me a minute, and I'm ashamed to say this, but like it was like halfway through the film and I was like, oh, how to get ahead in advertising. I was like, play on words.
It's one of those guitars. It's like a double guitar.
So the next two films are sort of fantastical, I think, in their themes. There's a sense of, I think, journey and adventure in both of these two. Let's start with Border. We'll save Beau's Afraid for last as like
we probably should, because I think there's going to be a lot of unwrapping.
Jag råkade bara köra förbi.
Vilken överraskning.
När jag var liten trodde jag att jag var något speciell. Sen blev jag vuxen och fattade att jag är bara människa. Kul och konstig människa med kromosomfel.
Det är väl inget fel på dig. Det är mycket du inte känner till. Var fick vi det där?
Det här? Vem är jag?
Du ska inte lyssna för mycket på vad människor säger.
I hela mitt liv så ingenting.
Border, it's 2018 film by Ali Abbasi. Did I say that right?
I think so, yeah.
Okay. Tina works at border control in Sweden. She has a keen sense of smell and that she can sense guilt, shame, wrongdoing on people as they pass. Tina also has quote-unquote animalistic physical features. One day her sense of smell is wrong when she encounters Vor, who shares her features and mannerisms. An attraction develops, and through this, Tina discovers the truth about her identity and the truth about Vor. This is based on a short story by the novelist who wrote Let the Right One In.
It is.
Yeah.
Didn't he work on the script as well?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah. This is an interesting take, I think, on the idea of the other. I mean, it's such a wide-ranging metaphor, in that it can be applied to like so many sort of historically marginalized groups. I think in this film too.
Right. Yeah, I was talking to you before. Like, of the four movies that are talking about today, none of them, they all four don't fit together. But like, there's groups of three where they all kind of fit together,
like the little triangle, like rotating triangles, right? Yeah.
This is but absolutely right about the other and like the a portion of the immigrant experience and this idea of this idea of suppression of history and understanding of who you truly are, and then the idea also of the other helping pervert buying into the structure that perverts the normal or the majority speak. I don't know. There's just so much fucking going on. This is such a beautiful film, like just from a way that it's shot, and it's also ugly in a lot of sense too. Like, I mean, what's going on is kind of ugly. It's also just ridiculously fantastical. I mean, it turns out, spoiler alert for 2018. It turns out that so through her continued relationship with Vor, and of course she lives in a home kind of out. This is all where's this film? Like
Sweden.
Sweden. Okay, yeah, I was going to say Norway.
Scandinavia,
right? Yeah. So they live out kind of in a remote area, and she has a home. And she lets this kind of drifter she lives in this sexless relationship with another person.
Yeah.
And the sexlessness is mainly because she's not confident in herself. She's kind of been.
She also talks about how painful it is.
Right. Yeah. And so, but she was brought up by And so you don't really, I mean, like this woman doesn't believe that she's not human. She just believes she has deformities that have kind of set her apart. Come to find out, she's a troll. So she's a literal troll.
Trolls exist,
right?
Not just online.
and so she's always been told that she's human, that she was adopted, and so she's living in this home. Her father's sick in his own home of herself, but she's got this companion that lives with her who has a dog, and like.
It's a show dog.
Right. And you kind of get the feeling, I kind of get the feeling where they were like, he was fighting them at some point, but maybe that was just me and I was just putting something on myself on the story.
He was played by Michael Vick.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why. It was a little on the nose. But this whole idea of, there's just so much going on in this. And then, there's a whole sub-thread of pedophilia and like child trafficking that's going on in this town. And actually, what's her name again?
Tina.
Okay. So Tina kind of leans into, she uncovers that because she's able to find this camera, this hard drive on this camera,
she finds an SD card on a guy's phone, right, through Border Patrol. And then she works with like the local police,
right,
to then uncover like where this is happening,
right. And it turns out that Vore is helping facilitate this by giving like troll spores of himself to take the place of human babies.
Because then he's trafficking those babies,
right,
as a way to like eradicate and harm the human race, right?
Right. Yeah. So he's basically trying to institute a troll. We're making this movie sound fucking bonkers, and it is. It is
bonkers. It is bonkers.
Bitch cakes film.
You said. Jason sent a text and said, "Borders bitch cakes."
This movie is 100% bitch cakes. This is my review for it. And so he's trying to basically trying to. Because the trolls have been, because of the human race, has kind of squashed them and killed them. So we find out later, we find out,
experimented on them,
right? And so that Tina was adopted and kept away from her troll heritage because there was so many. It was basically a troll massacre,
right?
I don't know. I'm only laughing because I'm using the word troll in front of all these.
But her adopted father worked at the institution where they were experimenting and testing on trolls, and so he was able to, in some way, take Tina with him. We don't really get the details of that, whether he sort of like smuggled her out or if they knew. I can't imagine that they would have just let him take, but it sounds like the parents, Tina's parents, troll parents, understood. I don't know, because they didn't make it.
Right.
Yeah.
And then Tina and Vore end up Vore basically tells Tina what she is. He kind of reveals to her, and they go skinny dipping, and so Vore actually gets stopped at the border twice because of Tina, and they do a strip search on Vore thinking that he's male, but they're not male. And so then Tina and Vore have sex out in the field after they run through the field naked together, kind of freeing themselves. And it turns out that Tina has unbeknownst to her, troll penis that makes itself present, so they can have sex in a very bizarre scene.
It was weird.
And I don't know. Yeah. Overall themes of this movie, I really liked it. I thought the one Vore and Tina were great.
Oh yeah.
And the process, like it's this, like watching this just from a technical perspective. And I know you get money from the different countries that you film in and things like that, but the fact that they're able to pull this type of film off under a low budget, but the artistry of the makeup and everything else, I think it's astounding. I think this movie does not look like a low budget film. It doesn't. I mean, obviously there's not that many characters in it, and there's not that many set pieces, but this is a movie that is confident. It is shot well. So to that end, I think it's quite an accomplishment. Of the three of his movies, I think this is his best movie. I think
I agree. So did you watch Shelley?
I did. I've watched.
Okay, I still haven't sat down to watch Shelley.
You don't need to.
Okay.
I mean, it's atmospheric. It's atmospheric horror, and to no end.
I mean, his movies are very atmospheric,
right?
I mean, I think that's a good way to describe them.
He finds his footing in Border. I think there's got more of, and I think he's helped by Alquist or whatever. I forget the guy's name.
Lundquist.
Right? Lundquist, yeah. So I think he's helped by the backing of that story and the backing and the script being put together by a clear, better storyteller. Shelley is just, it is a, for better or worse, it's an IFC midnight film. Gotcha. I mean, it's something that was picked up. It has a creepiness that kind of bleeds through it. And there's a singular shocking scene that exists really only for shock value. There's some cool set pieces, but ultimately adds up to nothing. And I think it's easily dismissed once you do watch it, and there's no real reason to like invest in it.
Yeah.
I found Holy Spider to be wildly ugly and gross, and I kind of understand the point of Holy Spider of this kind of, but I don't know if it really accomplished what it was trying to do well. Like, I don't think this turning back of a mirror on an Islamic society that is devaluing and denigrating women. I don't think that message. I just felt it was gross, and I don't think the message came across as like.
No, it becomes a basic kind of like cat and mouse movie.
Right.
I mean, really.
Right.
It doesn't.
And it doesn't do that well either, because both, I mean, like, this is not something that's intriguing. Like, it's not even Law and Order SVU, really, where there's no, because we set up from Front Street, we know who the guy is, right? We know who the killer is of these women. And so,
and his motivations really aren't explored that well. I don't think.
Right. Yeah. This idea that he is, has these fatwa on these women and is doing this for, like, that's not really, that comes into play as a defense mechanism.
Yeah.
And so then it is like a bad episode of Law and Order, because we are introduced to the I know we're not talking about this movie, but it's, I don't think it's, I didn't really like it. I mean, at all.
No, I didn't. And I saw it last year at the Heartland Film Festival, and I didn't really, I didn't really enjoy it. And it's really, it feels like a movie and a half.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because the opening scene, or the opening kind of like shot where we're following the one prostitute around, or sex worker.
Right.
And that's a little voyeuristic.
Yeah, the nudity's weird and out of place. Like, it's,
and
especially like you throw that in there because they're Muslim, right? I mean, I guess. I mean, it's, I don't know. It's weird.
It all feels a little icky.
Right.
I mean, to use a technical term. Right. It just feels a little icky and a little, I mean, really.
So Holy Spider, Brock and Jason give it 2 ookies.
2 ookies and I don't know. I mean, I have mixed feelings overall about Abbasi as a filmmaker. I mean, I think Border's good. This is a question that I had watching this film, and I wonder about the monsterization of the other. Right? And you can't see me, but I'm making air quotes. Right? I wonder if that backfires or could backfire in any way, making the other a literal monster in this film. And I
think it's been done so many other times, though. I think that it's a well-worn trope of being able to tell that story and to give sympathy to a fringe group because they're treated that way, and it brings us into a story that allows us normies to sympathize, right, without also feeling so terrible because we're doing that to the others in our own life that look like us. If we can make them out to be hideous monsters, but the monster was out inside of us the entire time. Yeah, I mean, it's nothing new, right? So.
Right. And I think I always worry about that. I mean, because this isn't necessarily a monster movie, right? I mean, which typically, like, monster movies are stand-ins for this kind of idea.
Right,
so that's where the well-wornness comes from. But this is played so sincere that I just,
I think it helps being told from Tina's perspective rather than some sort of outsider's perspective, like her father or even Vore for that matter, right?
Yeah. Well, because Vore, I mean, the things he is doing is not
right.
I mean, you can't really stand up for those. You can't really support those or find a way to justify them. Well, I mean, I guess you could. As we've discussed, we find ways to justify everything. This is the problem. We're still reckoning with the Enlightenment. We can't figure out how to get past it.
So we should just stop. We should just stop doing everything until we figure that shit out.
Just stop. Yeah.
And I think that's what the Hollywood producers are trying to do.
Yeah.
If you really look at it.
Look,
it's not
the reason we're not coming back to the table for like 52 plus days.
The reason we're delaying Dune 2 is so we can make sure we reason through all of our shit better.
Right.
Like, we don't want to distract you with Timothée Chalamet's beautiful blue eyes.
Yeah.
Or Zendaya's amazing presence on screen. We're
amazing everything.
Right. 2 Zendaya movies have been pushed back. And I'm not a huge, I didn't like Bodies and All really, I'm on the fence about Call Me By Your Name, but
but Challengers
looks good.
Yeah.
It looks pretty interesting.
I'm interested. Yeah.
I like a movie set in a tennis world too.
I like a movie.
You can just cut it off at that mostly, but I like a tennis movie. You don't get a lot of tennis movies. I mean, you get Wimbledon with Kirsten Dunst and Paul Bettany. It was terrible, but it was,
just Paul Bettany. Sorry.
And you have Match Point, I guess, which is not really a tennis movie, but it has tennis.
It has
names
tennis and stuff in it, right? I mean, that's such a weird retelling of Crime and Punishment too.
Yeah,
in aspects. Yeah.
I mean, but it's got ScarJo in it. And
yeah. Yes.
So
yes, it does. Yes, it does. In a field, in a white shirt. Is there a more like Woody Allen type picture than a young woman in a field in a wet t-shirt?
But if you're wanting to see what you thought was a female troll grow a troll penis and have sex in a field, and you want to see a kind of a glowing cocoon baby, like a movie, like from the movie Cocoon, like kind of with translucent skin, that's a troll baby that's in a fridge for a while.
Yeah.
And you want a kind of a morality story about how we should not treat people who look differently than us differently, but also they might be wanting to take back their land and we've killed them from. Border is the movie for you. If that's the movie you want to see, Border is the movie for you.
There's a ringing endorsement.
I really did like Border. I thought I thought it was really good.
I did too. I did too. I mean, I was. It had been a long time since it had been like 6 years since I'd seen Border. And to be honest, forgotten that Abbasi had done it. Mm-hmm. And then I was like, oh, right. And so, it was interesting to go back after watching Holy Spider, not really enjoying Holy Spider, and then seeing this and be like, oh, yeah, this. Okay.
Holy Spider is such a weird departure for him. Shelley kind of fits in that lane. Like, you can see Shelley is kind of like this is an 80-minute movie where he didn't really know where it was going. And then Border kind of falls into those same horror tropes, but not really. I mean, neither Shelley's not scary either. It's just unease. And same thing with Border. Holy Spider is a bizarre, poorly done message film and also I guess he's an Iranian filmmaker. So this being set back in Iran, I guess it was set in Iran. I wasn't really paying that much close attention to it.
It was, yeah. Okay. I mean, because it's based on a true story.
Oh, that's right. Right. I did, and that's a weird thing too to put at the end of that movie. Like, I know. It's like a very line item. So this, we just explain it for the listeners who are confused at what the fuck we're talking about. Which is, I know that's happened the entirety of all of our episodes, right? It's not. This is nothing new. This is well-worn territory.
We're on brand.
Like if we have a trope, it's a trope about you don't understand what the fuck we're talking about.
We're on brand.
Holy Spider is the third film by this director. It is about it's a set in Iran in this holy city of Mashhad or something along those lines. I apologize if I'm pronouncing it correctly. Unfortunately,
and there's a specific prophet that's from there that is
Imam that's there. And there's this man who is killing prostitutes, sex workers who were kind of outside of the temple. Mm-hmm. And there is also a female reporter who is kind of a disgraced reporter, not because of her own doing, who's trying to get attention to this story. Yeah. And so she puts herself in danger to unmask this killer. And then when they do unmask this killer, it is a morality story about whether society values more about justice or belittling these women who are supposedly not up to a moral code. And so he has supporters who are, because he was killing prostitutes, and of course that's his whole defense was that he was basically acting as the hand of God to kill these corrupt women. And so that's the story. It sounds like, okay, it's fine. I mean, but yeah. So at the end of the movie, he gets killed. He gets convicted of the murders, and you think that the conviction is basically for the papers, essentially, and that he's just going to be he's going to be delivered out of the country and allowed to live his life. But they do end up executing him, and then you watch his son kind of act out how his father had killed these prostitutes with his younger sister. Mm-hmm. And then the movie ends, and then there's a line item in a very kind of dark text against a dark background. It says this is based on a true story about what's happened in this city from 2000, 2001. Roll credits. And I don't really know like why that line is in there, other than to make you think, okay, well, yeah, I mean, like we already knew this was a thing. You know, I mean, like if this was to play out, I would imagine this is how it could very well play out. I don't like this. What I didn't like about this movie is that there's no like, it's all so heavy-handed, right? There's no subtlety of it's also helpless, right? There's not like this woman journalist is the only voice of reason in this, and so it paints a very already thought of picture of this place and time and this culture, and I don't believe that to necessarily be true. I believe that these beliefs exist. I don't believe that they're the only beliefs in this culture. And so to propagate this story and to not give it any nuance, it's kind
very
of fucked up,
white.
Right? Yeah, it's very what you would expect, right? And again, it's one of those things where it allows us as a viewer, you know, especially as a Judeo-Christian viewer, to go tisk tisk and this is why. Right. And now we can blame 9/11 on everybody who happens to be Muslim. And you know, it's that same sort of extremism. I can just kind of dismiss this entire culture because we all think that they think like this. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of fucked up that that's a story that an Iranian director is putting out there. Right. Yeah. Anyway. All right. Border good, Holy Spider bad.
Right. Next film.
Shelley. Meh.
Next film is Bug Nuts.
Yeah, no, I'm afraid of this movie. I mean, literally, I'm scared of this film. The more and more I watch it, the less and less I think I understand. Right. Like, again, well, I mean, no, let's just talk about Beau is Afraid.
So, yeah, Jason's being clever. We're going to talk about Beau is Afraid.
She's very pretty. Is that the type of girl you're attracted to?
I am so sorry for what your daddy passed down to you. I wanted a child.
I'm visiting my mother tomorrow. Do you ever wish that she was dead? What?
Beau? Are you on your way?
I'm on my way. It's not safe, is it?
I sincerely doubt that.
I'm sure you'll do the right thing, sweetheart.
This is the shortest description we've had so far today. Following the sudden death of his mother, a mild-mannered but anxiety-ridden man confronts his darkest fears as he embarks on an epic Kafka-esque odyssey back home. It's really, and we've said this, it's really amazing this film was made.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
and I say that as someone who loves this film. I'm not sure.
I really like it. It's not anything what I would have expected Aster to put out after Hereditary and Midsommar.
Right.
Which are similar, and although I think he doesn't think Midsommar was really intended to be scary, and it really isn't. Yeah. It's just disturbing in a British horror type way.
Right.
Hereditary obviously is the more horrifying film, but I would have not had put this film as a third. And it is almost like A24 drove up a truck of, like, just said, here is our, we're going out of town for the weekend, and here's our checkbook.
Here's the keys.
And, you know, try to keep it under 70 million if you can. If you can't, no sweat.
Yeah,
cool.
We were talking about this where I read that this film had a $35 million budget, which I thought, when I read that, I'm like, oh, that seems cheap. And then I also read other reports that said that A24 pumped as much as $70 million into the film, which I was like, okay, that makes more sense. But regardless, I mean,
who's making this film for 70? That's the thing, is like, how can you justify making, out of all the things that I want to say about the movie industry and how much I want them to support this stuff, I don't want them to be stupid with their money.
Right.
Like, this is not, like, you had to have known. And like we said this before, I don't believe that either of Astor's previous films brought in $70 million profit
on
combined.
Like $10 million budgets each,
right.
I think. So, yeah.
So I can't imagine, like, and I understand how scale works and youth, and so I get that, but I can't imagine that you're like, I want to make a movie about my own personal failings with my mother, and I want to make this personal film about my own insecurities and relationship with an overbearing mother, and no real positive male influence in my life. And you were going to give me $70 million to do that.
I want it to be 3 hours.
Right. And I'm going to make it the most, the most unpromotable film you possibly can put together.
Do you think we can sell penis monster toys?
You know how you guys sell little Marcel shells? Like,
yeah. Can we do that for the penis monster in the attic?
I want to sell Joaquin Phoenix's overinflated ball sack
distended testicles
as a souvenir to this film. I mean, what's crazy also, though, just put all of that aside, that the fact that he actually got it made and got it into major studios and major theaters. I mean, that it's ultimately watchable. Like, it's ultimately not only watchable, but really good. And I think your mileage is going to vary on how much you're willing to forgive this movie. And I think coming from it seems like a very, like, incel white male kind of, like, not call to arms is the wrong, but like, kind of like, just like, this is like, if you were going to market this, like, I would mark whatever message boards incels go to, I'd market it on there, because it seems like.
Do you think so? I mean, well, and I only, like, asked that question because he's so pathetic.
Right. But
so, like, I would feel like if an incel saw themselves there, they'd be like, oh, I need to get my shit together. I mean,
but maybe that's the intent, right?
Like, I mean, we think of, like, incel films, and of course, I think the first incel film I think of is "Don't Worry, Darling." Right. But those guys at least are like, I'm angry, and, like, women should love me because my hair's not greasy, right?
At least in the world I live in at night, I'm cool.
Like, Bo seems to know he's pathetic. I mean.
Yeah, I think so, but I don't.
And he's not actively. I mean, he's actively trying not to get laid, right? But he's not. He's not like, oh, no one will have sex with me. It's not fair.
I do think that aspect of it, though, this idea that you can blame everything on historical trauma and your parents specifically. His mom actively. Campaigned for him not to ever have any relationships outside of him. In fact, the one girl that he liked was carried away and then most likely bought off by his mother in the intent of, wait for me, Bo, wait for me.
Right.
And then he spent the rest of his life waiting for her, but also worried that were he to ever ejaculate, he'd die.
Because his father died post-orgasm. Yeah.
Right, before he...
And at the moment of Bo's conception.
Right.
It's so ridiculous. But I mean, so this is a very, I mean, like you said, Astor sort of chronicling his failings with his mother, or misgivings with his mother. I mean, this is a very, and I'm saying this because I think Astor said as much as well, but it is a very Jewish movie as well.
Yeah.
Right? And I think Astor called it a Jewish Lord of the Rings.
He's just fucking with us at this point.
Right? You would think. But I mean, I think, so let's play on the stereotype. I think this is a kind of stereotype of young Jewish men and their mothers, right?
Sure.
And this kind of like overbearing, like, Jewish mom and that kind of idea. And so I think on one hand, it is sort of playing with this and really sort of like ramp. Of course, it's like turned way, way, way up. But I think there are going to be people that recognize that in the film.
Right. I feel like though it does go beyond that because again, like,
well, I want to say, I mean, I don't want to call this a Jewish film per se. I think to do too much is problematic, right? But I do think there are aspects that hint towards that. The neighborhood he lives in, I think has been ghettoized in the way where he's kept in a certain sort of place and time.
Right, but I think that speaks to white guilt as a whole.
Sure,
right? I think that speaks not only white guilt, but like white perception of inner cities and
white fear. Right,
this naked birthday stabby guy is. I mean,
because again, it's so ridiculous. No, I 100% agree, and that's why I said I think to notice some of those things is fine, but I don't want to sit here and like dig into. Of course, and I'm not the person to dig into the Jewishness of the movie, but I just think that there are. Moment. I don't think Aster's trying to hide his Jewishness.
Right.
Is what I mean. So,
right.
But yeah, I don't think we're going to sit there and call it I'm not even sure it's not Fiddler on the Roof.
Right.
No, I'm trying to think. I'm trying to think of
I'm with
a Jewish film. I mean, come on.
It's not Yentl.
There you go. Okay. All right.
The Jewish Mulan.
Look, I guess I'm glad the Anti-Defamation League is no longer on Twitter.
Look, I don't know Jewish films. I don't.
So come at me. Like, I was just trying to
Brock Kingsley.
No, I was trying to make a point and then say to do much more is problematic, so I'm not going to. And then now we're here. Right? Let's talk about how this neighborhood does encapsulate kind of like white fear of urbanization or urban areas.
Yeah, and I one of the things I think could be problematic about this film is it does feel like that this movie does a lot of apologizing for white fear, right? And just just whiteness in general, right? I mean, this idea that okay, it's not really our fault, and it's not. And look, I get it that this is
my mom's fault,
right? But it's Beau's perception of what's going on around him. But like this is not an uncommon like I know it's hyper realized and it's fantastical, but you hear about the way that the press talks about Chicago.
Look at how Fox News talked about New York.
Right. So this idea that you're going to walk down the street and you can't leave your home to get a bottle of water,
right?
Because you can't leave your door unlocked, and you can't because the minute that you do that,
the entire neighborhood,
and also then when Beau gets back into his apartment after the bacchanal that's happened, and blood and death and shit is everywhere, and the slings and arrows that he faces, like he's trying to book a ticket to get to his mother's death. And he's got a shoe in his monitor, right? I mean, like this idea of like, but putting that in a capsule of thinking, well, Beau is just bearing the burden of all of this urban blight, and that he's the one who's been put upon, even though he's kind of an ineffectual, wimp. But you could argue that that this is a statement of how white men feel in this Trump era of DEI, CRT. Being put upon all these poor white men.
Everyone's so woke.
Right. Yeah. This level of wokeness, and this is what wokeness gets you.
Yep.
And so I think Aster's trying to balance a really fine line here, trying to tell a personal story, but also trying to give excuses to a group. And I still love this movie, but I think it's very, very dangerous of what he's doing, especially in the first act of this movie.
Yeah. I think this is, for what it's worth, a better way of framing that incel comment, right? Where it's not so much incel, but it's that, right? It's that like not every white man are like, oh, I don't know. But yeah, like we're so scared and maybe we should be. And so,
right, yeah. I mean, and I know that it's all meant, like the first time I watched this in the theater, I was laughing pretty much the entire first hour.
Yeah.
It's really, really funny. But also but I can see people sitting, and it's like I can see people sitting in the American History X, and like when Vineyard does his speech about how the immigrants are coming in and taking over the jobs and how it used to be, people can get empowered by that particular speech. And granted, you have to watch the rest of the movie, but I don't know if there's the rest of the movie for Beau in this.
But you know how stuff works? Like we cherry pick things.
Of course.
Have you ever heard people quote the Bible?
They only quote it from beginning to end. I don't know.
That's right. They just talk the entire time. And you have to get comfortable to like really pay attention. But
This one begat that one, and that one begat
You're like,
this
oh
one.
my gosh, all the begetting, right? But I was telling you that I sat down to rewatch this, and I was not in a great mood. I was in not a great day, just a bad space to watch this film, because as I sat there, I just was like cussing at the TV, right? Cussing at the film, at Bo, at everything, right? Like, fucking grow up, you fuck. I mean, and then cussing at Aster.
Right.
And I'm like, why is this so noisy? I mean, it was everything. And I think that's interesting in how our headspace can sort of play with this film. And the wrong headspace does not allow for a kind of, I don't know, I think positive interpretation of this film.
Right.
On any kind of level.
And I think it's good that Aster makes Bo essentially a man baby any other time outside of his childhood. Mm-hmm. When he's a child, he seems to have, I mean, he's still put upon, but he still has light in his eyes.
Mm-hmm.
He still has, life in him. By the time that we meet him, he's still and I think it's one of the brilliant things. He's bald, and he's still seems like he has baby fat.
Yeah,
He's not obese by any means, but he's just kind
his
of
clothes are like a size too big at least, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And he's not really doing anything, right? You see him going to therapy to a certain extent. Come to find out the therapist is being paid for by his mom.
Well, the entire world is controlled by
Right. I don't know. I think but had he been even Joaquin Phoenix in the Joker, right? Then he becomes a much more dangerous figure.
Right.
You have to make him ineffectual.
Speaking of a movie for incels.
Right. You have to make him ineffectual. Otherwise, this does become a movie where people will champion this character.
Yeah.
Like, look at him. He is the right, and he is in the right, and he's being put upon by all these outside forces that are clearly trying to get him. Now, I think once you get to the second act, which I guess there's 4 acts in this film. I mean, there's much more. Like, every portion of this can be weirdly broken down into. In just every character can be studied at this point. So you have the family who has fetishized their fallen son and forgotten about their daughter. You have the drug induced, not induced, but I mean the daughter who's turning to drugs to kind of combat the fact that her brother is gone, and that
the whole family too. I mean, there's this great scene when they're at dinner, and the dad goes, played by Nathan Lane, goes, "Oh, dessert time already," and passes out pills. And then the daughter comes home, grabs 2 bottles of pills in front of everyone and leaves, and the parents' response is, "Don't mix those." So this whole family is sort of self-medicating to get through this, and so she's just doing what she's learned. I mean,
but this idea where, and then so you're in a seemingly safe space, but constantly monitored. He's got the ankle monitor on. He's constantly under video surveillance. Everything's slightly off. You've got this huge masculine presence that exists that is only there in a threatening manner, that is constant. So again, from another incel perspective or white male perspective, where there's this forgotten alpha male presence that is constantly foreboding and in the background ready to pounce on you at any given moment that you misstep. Plus you have this young female who is also a danger to you because she can't be trusted.
Right.
She's on drugs. She has her own agency because her family's fucking forgotten her. And she knows how to manipulate the media and social media specifically, and also put you in dangerous positions that you can't get yourself out of. Like every character in this section is, and then you have the mom who is writing him notes and telling him to stop implicating himself and stop, basically that's a surrogate for his own mother saying, "Get to me," essentially. Stop being a pussy and and be the son I raised you to be, which she obviously didn't, right? Because she's dehumanized and demasculinized all of the men in her life. The 2 that were in her life.
I was going to say.
And then this movie never relents, right? It's even when it relents, it doesn't relent. And so the part that I have the hardest time with in this section is the suicide, by paint, is when she drinks the paint. That's the most like, I don't know what to do with that instance.
Yeah.
So the daughter comes in and Beau's been staying in. So Beau escapes the city hellscape by being run over by a car. He's being chased by a naked stabby guy. He's naked himself. The cops won't help him. They shoot at him, and he gets hit by a car driven by Amy Ryan. And they're brought to a kind of a seemingly docile suburban home, with Nathan Lane and Amy Ryan, and they have a son who they lost in one of the wars, and they're putting puzzle pieces together of him and of his face.
They kept his bedroom the same.
Right. And Beau's not staying in his bedroom. There's no one staying in that bedroom. He's not. He's staying in the daughter's bedroom, and the daughter's staying out on the couch, and Beau's trying to be apologetic and trying to give her our room back. But
he's
also
so
trying to,
wimpy. He's just, everything he does is just so wimpy.
And he's trying to get back to his mother's funeral, who's obviously died at the beginning of this movie. So at one point, the daughter comes into the room and is upset, and like she's going to paint it, and then she wants Beau to help her paint it with her, and then she just drinks paint.
Him.
And that's what causes Beau to leave that situation.
Because then Amy Ryan blames him for that.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know what to do with that section of the movie. It comes out of, like, it's coming, and but it's still so disturbing to watch. It's such a of suicide death. That's so like graphic, and like it's just because it's not bloody. It's just awful.
Yeah.
Right.
It's really tough to watch. And I mean, it makes me think when people talk about drinking antifreeze, and except that would be more
right. Yeah.
Visual when you would see things.
Right.
But yeah, it was weird, colorful. No, but it was just, I mean, it's just there to get him back on the run. Right.
Right.
I mean, I can't think of any other reason why it's there. I'm trying to make connections with like the Odyssey. Right. I mean, because I think this is very much like, Beau as an ineffectual Odysseus, right? Trying to get back home. But, and I can't make a connection there. But I do think though that in some way, and if you think about Beau, and if you think about like carrying this past trauma, with him, all of this is in negative ways affecting those around him. Right. I mean, So, I mean, that's just another instance of that, of Beau being unable to sort of stand up for himself, being able to stand up to anyone, especially anyone female, right? To say no, to put that down, or to like leave. He just stands there, right? As he does and just watches everything.
Right.
He never, I mean, does he ever make an action? Does he ever make a decision?
No.
Yeah.
I mean, for his own self, no.
Right.
I mean, like the only time that he ever really tries to get angry with his mom is when he tells her that he realizes that she wasn't dead, and that he recognized the maid's hands and not hers, and he was upset that the maid died, and that his mother wasn't really dead, and that it was all just a ploy. But yeah, so he runs away and runs into the forest and comes across this traveling theater group who's putting on this story, and he is watching this play, and he meets his real father at the play, but the gist of all of this is that he believes the play to be about him. He wants this play to be about him.
Yeah.
And it's a story about a man who's loved, who's done things, who's created a family, who worked hard all of his life, who built things, and then it was taken away from him by a great storm. And then he spent all the rest of his years trying to get it back, trying to find his sons. And then and then when he does finally meet it, he finds his sons again. They're all happy to see him, and they're all welcoming him, until they realize that Beau's never had sex, and that Beau, he couldn't have possibly created these sons. This idea of like this thing that we build ourselves up as, you know, and this the way that we see ourselves versus the reality of it all and the way that we want to see ourselves, I think this is the most like disheartening and saddening part of this, because this is a man who has never really, like I said, never really taken an action, but wants to, and this idea that you know, he has this ideal of what he wants to be, but no idea of actually how to do it, and how to, and all it would have taken. And what the man in the play didn't do anything heroic necessarily. He was just a man, right? It was as simple as he was just a person who lived, who had a life, and had some tragedy in it, but he didn't let that tragedy squash him. And this is everything antithesis to what Bo actually is, right?
Right. I mean, I love this idea of seeing ourselves as who we want to be more than who we really are, right? Which is exactly, Bo's watching this play and he's sort of inserting himself in there. And of course, then the spell is broken, right? But, you know, he gets to tell himself a story of who he is, not even of who he could have been, right? But he like imagines like, this is who I am. This is it. And then that spell gets broken. And of course, it's crushing for us and it's crushing for him. I mean, that is like, is it the only place that I felt maybe like sympathy and empathy for Bo in this film? It may be.
Yeah, but I still think it's so pathetic though, that he doesn't realize that that's not him, right? I mean, that he gets caught up in the lie of it all. And isn't
that why we watch movies?
I guess so.
No, I mean,
I watch them because I have to, right? And it's just
yes.
This multi-million-dollar podcast job that I've got keeps me on my toes.
Yeah, it's like I'm writing checks. Good luck.
Yeah, I mean, it's I don't know. I still feel, you feel empathy, at least with Bo in this case.
Or I feel like this is where he's most human, right? Because look, we all do this. We all imagine ourselves to have handled a situation differently. We all imagine ourselves, so if this happens, then I will be this kind of person, right? I will put on this persona to be this for these people. I mean, we all do this. And whether or not that actually happens when that time comes is a different story. But we know that this is at least relatable. The other times, I'm just like, yeah, I don't know what you are. You're like this jellyfish that's like rolling around the city and not doing anything. At least this is a kind of act of creation, right? Through imagination.
And this comes at a particularly set point in Bo's life, right? I mean, this is what people do as they reflect when they have little time left, at least not enough time to kind of change course, right? You imagine these things that you should have done or how things could have been.
And he's befriended a pregnant woman as part of the tribe, right? I mean, or she's befriended him, I should say, because he's incapable, again, of doing anything.
And then the traveling theater group is set upon by gunfire.
Jeeves, right? Jeeves from Nathan Lane's house.
And so Bo is on the run again, and he finally ends up at his mother's house. The day, basically, as the funeral is wrapping up, and the entire thing was that the funeral couldn't happen. That the mom was making sure that Bo was present before she got buried. So Bo was constantly under this stress of, well, I've got to get there because people are waiting on me so they can bury my mom, and she needs to be buried right away. So he gets there as the caterers are packing up, and he goes in, and there's the whole video presentation that he watches, and he sees his mom's, his quote unquote, it's basically his old carrot keeper's money, but he thinks it's his body. He thinks that it's his mom's body, a headless corpse in an open casket. And so as he's watching this happen, the young girl that he fell in love with on the cruise ship so many years ago, turns out that she was working for his mother.
Which, again, everyone is.
Right, and everyone in the story is working for his mother. And she runs this huge, successful corporation, and everyone loves her, et cetera, et cetera. And so she comes in and basically connects with Bo, just like they were there when they were kids, and they have sex, which is a hilarious, wonderful sex scene with Parker Posey. So good. Nina Braun's Parker Posey and like make sure no one ever hurts her and like, she stays around forever. She's such a national treasure.
She's the best.
And so like she's so good in this, and like I love that she's like, yeah, you're just the same except for your body and your face.
And she has a great choice of song for intercourse. Mariah Carey's "You'll Always Be My Baby."
Right, which is and which is like, it's one of those things where like you want Bo to fight back against his mom, right, the entire time. And like what's great about that scene is they're starting to have sex, and she's and Parker Posey has put on "You'll Always Be My Baby," and then as they start having sex, she's like, "Wait, stop! We're going to start the song over."
It's good.
And so they have sex, and Bo doesn't die when he finishes, but Parker Posey, the robot that she turns out to be, does die. So in the middle of I guess that's not true, because she says that she wants to finish. Like Bo finishes, and she's like, wait, I want to finish too.
Right.
And so as she finishes, she dies. But it turns out that she's just a robot or an android of some sort. And that Bo's mother has been alive the entire time, and that
watching from the corner,
right? Disgusted that her son can think about sex on the day of her death
in her bed,
right? And this is when Bo, in her bed, and this is when Bo reveals that he knew that she wasn't dead, that he saw the hands of the corpse and the hands of his caretaker when he was young, and then the movie loses most of its audience. I'm going to say at this point, basically, there's a tete-a-tete between Bo and his mom, and they're coming to, and she's like, well, you want to know why? You want to know why I did all of this for you? And like this, and she's like, it's up in the attic. And we've been alluding to the attic for a while. And so you want to see your father, he's up in the attic, essentially. And she opens the attic, and Bo goes up there, and there is a gigantic penis monster that has distended testicles, and Bo basically has to fight it. And then Jeeves from the house and the play comes in and
through the upstairs window,
through the attic window, and comes in and fights the penis monster for Bo. Still, again, taking away any sort of agency that Bo has at this point. Bo escapes on a boat. He like runs away, gets into a boat and goes across this lake, and then the boat enters into this arena. And and another one of these moments of like the fear that everyone has, and this idea of like, well, on my deathbed, this is what heaven's going to be like, right? I'm going to be judged for everything that I've been doing. And like, so every thought that Bo has in his head that is against himself is brought up at this. So he's basically in this boat, standing alone, stuck. His mom and her lawyer are judging him and like laying out a case against him of why he's a bad son.
He's got a public defender. His feet are glued to like the
station. And then the entirety of what you assume would be Bo's life sits in the shadows judging him, as the spotlight's on him, and the public defender tries to defend him, and there's different things that are brought up in the paparazzi. There's different things that are brought up from different angles about when Bo was a child and certain things that happened, blah, blah, blah. But ultimately, Bo is revealed to be the piece of shit that Bo always thought he was. And Bo's mom made him believe that he was, right? So the boat gets upended.
Capsizes.
Bo is stuck to the bottom of it, so he's clearly going to die. And we roll credits.
There you go.
That's it.
It is a trip of, it's a trip of a film. It's just
you have to applaud it just from the fact that it got that there's no way that there was ever any studio interference in this. There was no way that there were any notes given to Ari Aster. This is what he wanted to make. And I get that, Hereditary and Midsommar were lauded. And I think for the most part this was as well. But I think this like, you don't get to make these. Like, not everyone gets to make these fever dream 3-hour-long magnum opus films. Like, this is not Jodorowsky. You never got to make Dune. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you get to make films, but like you don't get what, even if this is $35 million, which is, again, like you said, it seems light. let's just split the difference and say 50. You don't get to make these films very often. And the fact that you get to make it today in the system that we're in, where you really don't have, like, I don't know what if you're a A24 accountant, do you just not give a fuck? Are you just
right?
Like,
right.
I mean, again, and I never want to be the guy that says, well, this movie's got to be made, and it's got to make. If you spend 50, you need to make 51. But I do think that ultimately you do need to do that. Otherwise, you're canon, right? You're gonna go belly up. So the idea, maybe they had enough like tax breaks or something to make this film. But like, I mean, hats off to them that they made it. Hats off to Astor that he was able to get it done. I do think this is an ultimately really watchable and engaging and intriguing film. I think there's a lot to take away from it. I do think there's some potentially problematic pieces of it. But I think this is a film you can live in for a really long time and try to figure out all this stuff. I think there's all different kinds of schools of thoughts that can come into this.
Well, and I think we touched on some, here today. If people didn't catch that, we said some really smart things here.
Right. That's the fourth thing to take away from this podcast.
Sometimes we say smart things.
We say smart things.
But I think you're right, where you can almost section off this film, right? I mean, you have 4 acts or whatever, but you can sort of bracket those off and just sort of study those,
right?
As their own self-contained, like, shorts, right? I mean, you really can.
I would love for there to be an A24 like network, TV network, where there was a Beau is Afraid like television series.
Oh, like that would be, we really get like Beau's origin story, like further background,
just Beau's day to day,
and like who did Mona actually put up in the attic, right? I mean, but I think this is an interesting scene too. So there's this like recurring sort of dream or like vision that Beau has of him being
in a bathtub
and looking at his mother yelling at what looks like a version of him. Right?
Yeah.
And we see bits and pieces of that play out. And then finally we see a moment where we are fully from Beau's point of view in the bathtub, and Mona is putting the other Beau in the attic. And are we meant to sort of take that as like Beau's psyche? Is that when she like neutered Beau?
Right.
Or, I mean, is this like a literal twin who was asking about the father, right, who's not there? And then but I mean, I think this is just another moment of like where we can, sort of look at this in a number of different ways.
I mean, I always took it as like that whole forcing him to take a bath with her kind of thing is just another emasculating thing and so like, she's just.
So it's cutting off his dick, like literally.
And putting it upstairs so he can't ever use it. And it's like he's going to have to fight against it as it turns into a monster. That's an interesting like take, right? I mean, this idea of that, that masculinity is a monster, right? And that can cause all of these. Like, if she didn't do that to Beau, then what does he become, right?
Right.
And so does he? If he's allowed to keep his,
testosterone,
right? And what does that do to him? Because I mean, Beau does look like a kind of a guy who's got low T issues, and like and it's just.
Right. I wonder if he's talked to Frank Thomas.
Get some extends and this motherfucker.
And Doug Flutie. Showing our age here.
Speaking of like how to get ahead in advertising, like seriously, how badly did you mismanage your money, or how much money did they offer you to do that ad? Now again, I mean, I don't think everyone's like truly thinking that Frank Thomas and Doug Flutie are neutered. But this idea of like some fucking weekend warrior jock coming out, it's like, I want to fuck like Frank Thomas fucks. Well, wait a minute.
You use it too?
Frank Thomas needs a little bit of oomph in the bedroom. Like,
the Big Hurt?
Goddamn.
They didn't call him the Big Hurt because of what he did on the field, right?
He did in the bedroom. Where do you lose your integrity? And then again, it's easy for me to say that because I never had any, and I wouldn't be offered the opportunity to lose it in that sort of like monetary fashion. But where the fuck do you lose your integrity?
Yeah, but again, like, where do you draw the line, right?
I mean, so if you're done yet, right? I mean,
if you're Ice Cube, but yeah. I mean, where do you sort of say like, what? I'm retired. Like, what else am I gonna?
Right.
Okay, sure. Like, what do you think? I give a shit about shilling for boner pills? Who you gonna make fun of me, buddy? I mean.
I mean,
right. But again, like,
what does it matter? Yeah. What's it matter when you're driving? Like, yeah.
And at a certain point, do you just consider yourself a salesman all the time? I'm selling myself on the field. I'm selling myself here. I'm selling myself here. So, all right, here's one more thing.
Yeah. It just.
And how big are those checks? And are they a shower or a grower?
It just seems like if we, again, this is the society that we built for ourselves. This is the society where we've taught everyone that money, it's the Worthington Law, right? And I'm stealing that from Mr. Show, but this is the Worthington Law. This is if you've got more money than Einstein, you're smarter than Einstein.
Yeah,
right. And so we don't even want Christianity. We don't even want morality. We don't want that. We want to pretend. We want to wear that as a piece of clothing, but we don't actually want to do it. What we want is money. And so I don't give a shit about snake oil being sold necessarily. I mean, there's something to be said about manufacturing that and hawking it, but that's been going on since, for the 192,000 years we've been on this earth.
Doesn't mean it's okay.
Right. But I guess, I'm a Hall of Fame baseball player. I worked hard. I was given gifts by DNA and by, heritage and
luck and the luck of the draw.
And luck. And I worked hard, but I also got noticed by the right people and had the right opportunities handed to me. But I also accomplished something that is rare and that won't be accomplished by many. And I'm using that cachet to further my riches by selling shit to people that not only do they don't need, but just simply won't fucking work. And then the boil comes out on your neck and takes over the good part of your soul and just says, fucking take the money, man.
Yeah.
Just take the fucking money.
The boil says, and she'll like it too.
God damn that fucking ad. Seriously, I mean, fuck you. Yeah. Fuck all that shit. Just fuck.
So these have been 4 very interesting films that we've looked at today. No, it's it's a bummer day around here. I mean, look, money sucks. Fuck this shit, right? But to get away from the bummerness.
Well, I mean, and this is a good, I don't want to extend this.
Go ahead.
This is a good callback to Sorry to Bother You. And one thing that we didn't really talk about is when Cassius Green goes to the party, he is forced to do things. When I say forced, he still chooses to do them. But Armie Hammer basically makes him rap. And it's like, you're black. You must know the black experience. You must have popped a cap in someone's ass. And Cash is like, no, I don't rap. I mean, I listen to rap, and but I can't rap. It's like, come on, you're rap. And then they're all just like, rap. And he tries to rap and essentially sells out, just sells out his culture, his hair, just sells himself out with the rap that he does. And I'm not going to repeat it, right. but
he's playing to this crowd.
Right.
I mean, he's doing exactly what they want to hear and giving them license to say the same thing back.
And the only 2 people that really look at him and question him are Armie Hammer and Mr. Blank. And they're both like, oh shit, you're really doing this?
Really?
So we know we fucking own you. And it's an interesting scene that Cash never really kind of comes to. I mean, because at that point, Cash then realizes he's going to become a horse, and all the horrors happen. So he's allowed to kind of but he never really has to sit with that moment.
Yeah. Well, there's that moment where he's sitting kind of by himself as the orgy is taking place, right? And he's not taking part in it, and he just looks completely dejected and drunk and just kind of beside himself. So I wonder if there is a moment of reckoning of oh God, okay, well, yeah, what have I sort of become? Right. What have I done? Right. And then Mr. Blank says, you got to go do this and don't mess it up. And he looks like he doesn't want to go do it. But then of course, he gets excited. Yeah.
Right.
That scene where he's rapping reminds me, I don't know if you listen to Vince Staples, especially summer 2006. Vince Staples, he's from Long Beach, another Crip rapper, but he's really great. In one song, he talks about being at a concert, saying the N-word, and having all the white fans say it back to him. And it's just like, what the fuck?
Right.
I mean, so
Right, yeah.
this, I mean, it's a really interesting moment of like the kind of cultural appropriation and non-appreciation, I think, and
Right.
from audience. So, yeah.
The world's a difficult place, people. And so I think
If you've
that's-
learned nothing today,
which clearly you haven't.
at least you've learned that. At least that we think it's a difficult place.
Right.
It's a disheartening place. I think, especially when we talk about art and we want to, you know, in many different ways create art, it's a really difficult place to sort of be.
It's not valued.
It's not valued.
And it's difficult. It's you know, as much as we talk about like we're surprised that movie got made, Beau was afraid it got made. Like it's weird to talk about movies, and we become this thing where we talk about movies in the matter of the amount of dollars that they can bring in. And it's weird to talk about it in a capitalistic society where it's devalued to the sense that it becomes pop culture, right? Like we talked about the art, the
commodification.
Yeah, the resistance art becoming on the billionaire's wall. So then we talk about Banksy and all this other like these other pop, you know,
Fucking Shepard Fair.
right? All these kind of like graffiti, like low end, like not low end, but like these kind of underground artists who then become these. You know, and it didn't even happen to people like Basquiat, and like I mean, like it's just it's a matter of you eventually become the villain that you were trying to fight against all along, right? Whatever the fucking Batman line is, I don't know.
So next time we're going to get back into more Cassavetes with Minnie and Moskowitz and A Woman Under the Influence. We'll also talk about the new Emma Seligman film Bottoms, starring Rachel Sennett and Ayo Edebiri. I'm sure that I just fucked that name up, and I'm very sorry.
I think she'd be okay with you doing it. I think she's probably used to it, and she seems very affable and like very nice and very funny and so fucking good in that movie.
Yeah,
so like, yeah, if you haven't seen Bottoms, go see Bottoms. I'm looking forward to talking about it because it is such a good fun movie. So
okay. Anything else you wanna throw in there?
No, I think that's it.
Okay,
keep living, guys. I mean, I would like to say it only gets better, but you know
it doesn't.
Yeah.
LIVIN. All right. Until next time. Thanks for listening.
And keep fucking screaming, guys.
You have been listening to Why Does the Wilhelm Scream with your hosts, Brock and Jason. If you liked today's episode, do us a favor and rate, review, and subscribe in whatever application you use to consume podcasts these days. You can reach us by visiting whydoesthewilhelmscream.com. If you are in the DFW area, we would love to see you at a Fort Worth Film Club event. You can learn more about those and find a full schedule at fortworthfilmclub.com. And you can learn about my foundation and how we are trying to foster the next generation of film lovers at realhousefoundation.org. That's REEL housefoundation.org. Till next time,